We are going to begin adding and subtracting fractions. So we're going to do a few warm-ups. 3 elevenths plus 6 elevenths. We already have both of them out of 11, having a common denominator, so it's going to continue to be out of 11. And we're going to add the numerators. 3 plus 6 gives us 9 out of 11. If we look at the next one, we have 5 sevenths, 5 out of 7, and we're going to take away 2 of those 7. So we're going to subtract the numerator because they have the same denominator, meaning that they're all the same size pieces. 5 minus 2 is 3, giving us 3 sevenths. For C, same process, 13 plus 7. They both have common denominators, so we're just going to add the numerators, giving us 20 out of 24 now. You'll notice that this is the first time where we end up with numbers that can be simplified. 9 and 11 were both prime, we can't simplify that. 3 and 7 also both prime, can't simplify that. 20 and 24 can both be divided by 4. So we're going to show that in the numerator and denominator to simplify, giving us 5 sixths as our final answer instead. For D, again, common denominator, so we're just going to subtract the numerators. 34 minus 9 gives us 25 out of 50. You'll notice one ends in a 0, one ends in a 5, meaning we can divide both of them by 5. So when we do that, 25 divided by 5 gives us 5. 50 divided by 5 gives us 10. And once again, one ends in a 5, one ends in a 0, so we can divide them by 5 again, giving us 1/2 as our final answer. So then we would want to circle that to identify the final answer. What did you need? What did we need every single time here that each problem already had to be able to add and subtract these fractions? 2 words. We have to have common denominators. When we have common denominators, you can add and subtract the numerators exactly as given. If they aren't common, like you'll see in some of these examples, then we have to create those common denominators. But when they are already common, like we can see, we just take care of the numerator with that operation, the denominator stays the same, and we simplify. So let's try some now where we don't have common denominators, meaning we have to create a common denominator first using equivalent fractions. So let's look at D first. We're going to stack the original fractions given to us, 1/4 plus 2/3. That way it's going to help us organize when we do have common denominators. And we want to figure out what is that common denominator going to be between 4 and 3. We learned that if we multiply those two numbers together, 4 times 3 gives us 12, so 12 can be a common denominator. Looking at the top fraction, 1/4, we would have to multiply the 4 by 3 to get to 12, so that means we also have to multiply the 1 by 3. We have to treat them equally to keep their relationship the same, giving us 3/12. Down here, the 3 would have had to be multiplied by 4. 3 times 4 is 12. So we also have to match that in the numerator, giving us 8/12. Keeping in mind, we are still adding them together. So now we just add their numerators like we did before. We have common denominators, so we're going to add 3 plus 8, which is 11 out of 12, and then we check to see if we can simplify, which in this case, we can't, so 11/12 is our answer. This is a great way to organize your work, to keep track of common denominators and equivalent fractions, to make sure that we're not changing the problem, we're just rewriting the fraction as an equivalent fraction. Let's try a similar one, but with subtraction instead. So again, we're going to stack them. 5/8 minus 1/2. The fraction listed first goes on top, minus the other. Between these two, we could say 8 times 2 to give us 16, but also we can multiply the 2 times 4 to give us 8 in the denominator. And then we only had to multiply or rewrite one of the fractions to get a common denominator. So if we multiply both of those by 4, instead of 1/2, now we have 4/8, which is the same value. And in the numerator, we can show that we're just multiplying them both by 1, because anytime we multiply by 1, the value stays the same, giving us still 5/8. And the operation is subtraction, so I want you to carry that over as well. Now we have 5/8 minus 4/8, which gives us 1/8 for our answer. You always want to check after you add or subtract if you can simplify. B. Again, we're going to stack it 2/5 minus 1/3. Again, it's subtraction. Between the 5 and the 3, we can multiply them together to get a common denominator of 15. So we want to write that first. And then we ask, how do we get from 5 to 15 using multiplication? We would need to multiply it by 3, meaning this fraction, numerator and denominator, has to be multiplied by 3. That has to match, giving us 6. 3 would have to be multiplied by 5 to get to 15, so 1 also has to be multiplied by 5, giving us 5/15. Now when we subtract our new equivalent fractions, 6/15 minus 5/15 gives us 1/15. For the last example, we're going to switch back to addition, so be very careful to look at the signs and stack them again. 4/7 plus 4/9. This is a great way to show your work stacking them, especially when we have to create the common denominator. 7 times 9 gives us 63. So that is going to be our common denominator. This is where knowing our multiplication facts comes in really helpful. 9 would have to be multiplied by 7 to get 63, so we have to multiply the 4 as well by 7. That has to match, giving us 28. 7 had to be multiplied by 9, so 4 also has to be multiplied by 9, giving us 36. And then we have to add those numerators together, knowing that the denominator is going to stay the same no matter what we get. So you can show that work always off to the side. You don't have to do any of this in your head. You can write all of it down. 6 plus 8 is 14. 1 plus 3 is 4. Plus 2 more is 6, giving us 64. And you'll notice here that it's a top-heavy fraction, so we have to simplify it using division. So we're going to say topsy in the boxy, 64 divided by 63. It doesn't go into the 6, but it goes into 64 one time with exactly 1 left over. So it went in 1 complete time with 1 left over, so 1's in the numerator, and the denominator stays the same. So 1 and 1/63 would be your answer. Keeping in mind that anytime you are adding and subtracting fractions, you absolutely must have common denominators before you do so. Once you have the common denominator, then you can just add or subtract the numerator to find your answer, checking to simplify at the very, very end.